Welcome back to Steve's Guitar. So this is a guitar that I picked up just the other day on Facebook Marketplace, and I paid £10 for it. So the reason I bought this was students approached me. They don't have a guitar and they asked for advice on buying one, which I'm happy to give. And sometimes they say, can I hire a guitar or rent a guitar? So rather than that, I thought if I could get hold of a couple of reasonable beginner guitars with some good strings, I can lend them to them. They can see how they get on, and if they like it, they can buy a guitar, and if they don't like it, they can give it back. So the brief was I wanted to spend as little as possible. I've found 2 or 3 of these on Facebook Marketplace. This was the first one that responded. So for £10 I got a Martin Smith, and the model number is a W101NPK. I looked it up before I went to see it. You can buy these Argos, Amazon, places like that for between £65 and £80. I didn't have very high expectations, but the thing is it's quite playable. The action's nice. I've changed the strings for obvious reasons and cleaned it up, and it looks good. It looks like a pretty new guitar. It's got a few scuffs and scratches on it, and I'm sure it will get a few more in the time that it's out on loan. Okay, so as far as playing it goes, it does feel quite nice. And it sounds okay. The tone's not great, but I guess it's predominantly plywood. The construction method is fairly conventional. It doesn't look anything special, but it is a guitar. It is made of wood. This is clearly ply, this is clearly ply, and this may or may not be a veneered piece of ply at the front. Bridge is quite nice. The nut's plastic, of course. The machine heads are probably the cheapest ones you can buy, but they're not bad. They're a little bit temperamental, but I don't know how old this is. But they tune up and it holds tune. It's stayed in tune for 2 days now. And also it's not a bad thing if you're learning to check for tuning every time you pick the guitar up and maybe give it a tweak. So that doesn't worry me. So I think for £10 I've got something that's actually pretty good. Now I don't think I'd go out and buy a brand new one for 80 quid. I'd rather put a bit more money to it and get something just that little bit better. And you don't have to put a lot of money to it. There's some nice Ibanez guitars around. I saw a Yamaha recently at a really good price, about 120 quid. But I don't want to buy 2 or 3 of those to loan to people. Maybe if I was going to hire them out, that might be worth it. But I am literally going to say, look, there's a guitar. Take it for 2-3 weeks, have a couple of lessons, see how you get on. There are people that will love it and will go out and buy themselves a guitar and stick with it. Others, maybe, you know, it's not the right time. Maybe life's busy, or maybe they just don't get on with it. And I've saved them spending between 80 and 150 quid on a guitar that they would then have to get rid of. Although maybe I could buy them at a good deal, but let's try not to think of it like that. So what you've got is a fairly conventional looking steel string guitar. It's full size. The neck board appears to be rosewood. I doubt very much that it is. It's probably coated with something. So first thing I did when I got home was I took off the 3 or 4 strings that it had, cleaned everything back with some soapy water, mild solution, dried it all off. A little bit of orange oil on the fretboard, same on the bridge. I changed these pegs. I didn't need to, but I had a box full of pegs and bits and pieces, so I popped some pegs on, put on a set of strings. Now the strings, probably about £10 in reality, so they're not the cheapest strings, they're not the dearest strings. You want reasonable strings when you're learning, because it's much easier on your fingers. Cheap strings are like playing a cheese cutter, so this is a better way to go. It's worth spending an extra £4 or £5 on some reasonable strings and just 3 or 4 quid on some really cheap strings. Now there are some cheap strings that are pretty good, but I don't want to get into that. These are Ernie Ball Earthwood strings, which I use a lot. I like them. Obviously there are strings like Elixir, Gibson make nice strings. I favour Martin lights on my own guitars, but I wouldn't recommend you go out and buy them if you're a beginner, because you can spend too much money on strings. These Earthwoods are great. Amazon, eBay, local guitar shop. Now, I will say, if you're going to go out and buy yourself a guitar to play, I would go and visit your local guitar shop. Two reasons for that. One is you can physically see the things. They'll usually let you hold them. If you're not too embarrassed, you can have a little play on it. No one's going to expect you to be a virtuoso. But doing that gives you a much better idea of what you're buying than looking at a photo online. Now, from a playing point of view, this does feel quite good. The action is reasonably low. There are a couple of things wrong with this. Now, this might be just this one. But one of the things that is annoying me is the spacing of the strings. You can see it's not equal. There's a bit of a gap there. Now, it's okay, I can get around that. And if you're learning, it's not really a problem. But if I was paying 80 quid for this, I'd be really upset. I'm going to go and look at another couple over the next sort of week, 10 days and try and acquire another couple for about the £10 mark. I'm not trying to knock people down. I'm not trying to get someone to part with something that's worth more than the money that I'm offering. I'm just looking for cheap, reasonable guitars that I can clean up, put some strings on and get people playing. Now, from a point of view of what these are and what you get, almost certainly made in China, almost certainly made of ply. It's really a lot of paint finish and not a lot of wood, but it plays okay. It feels quite good to play, actually. The tone's not great. You're not going to impress anybody with the tonal quality of it, but obviously that's down to the wood that it's made from. Good strings make a massive difference. So for £10, if you're in the market for a cheap knockabout guitar to learn on, jump on somewhere like Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree. These, read it again, Martin Smith. They're not bad. They're not a bad guitar. So if you've got one that's got a straight neck, do check the neck, have a look down it and make sure that there's no curvature that shouldn't be there. Check for cracks. Another favourite is usually a dent on this end where it's been dropped. Avoid that too. It doesn't actually affect the playability, but it does weaken the structure of the guitar, which you don't really want. Even if you're only paying a tenner for it, you want something that's going to be structurally sound. If it's got the full set of strings on it, great, but I would change them. I would get yourself some different strings because the old ones aren't going to be great. I do find that this has got a little bit of buzz to it in certain places. Now that might be me. I might need to sort of play with it a bit longer. But it's not perfect. It's not a great guitar, but from a point of view of learning your chords, learning some strumming patterns, getting used to holding the guitar, tuning, and all those basic things, this is ideal. This is perfect. So when somebody approaches me next time and they haven't got a guitar, can they hire one? I say, look, borrow that, have that for a couple of weeks, do these things I've taught you, let me know what you think. And I think 9 times out of 10, they're going to continue and they'll probably go out and buy themselves something reasonable. You don't need to spend a fortune on a guitar, but you do need to get yourself up out of that sort of sub £100 area in reality. Anyway, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to show you what you can buy for a tenner. There's not really much else I can say about it. I mean, it's a cheap guitar. They've come a long way. I remember back in the 1970s, early 80s, you could buy cheap guitars. The brand was Kay, I think, and they would be in places like Woolworths. And when you did that, the strings were like ½ inch off of the fretboard, and they were really hard work to play. And also, they didn't look particularly great either. Actually, I had one. But in the 80s, I had a Gibson Les Paul copy made by Kay. It didn't come from Woolworths, actually, but I did have one. I had it for probably a couple of years. Swapped it for something else in the end. But the point is, you can play on this, and you can play a reasonable tune. You can get used to your chords, you can get used to the changes, build your speed, learn about tuning. You don't need to spend a lot of money, and ultimately it is a guitar that you can play. So that's it for now. Be back very soon. I'm going to do some interesting stuff with maybe some little bluesy riffs that you can play yourself. I've got a couple of simplified songs coming up. Fast Car, Tracy Chapman's one of those, where what I've done is I've kept everything in the first 3 frets. sounds exactly the same. You just lose a little bit of that slide. So that's coming up soon. I suppose I really should cover Sweet Home Alabama, 2 versions of that. So that'll be coming up soon as well. I don't think I'll do it on this though. I'll let somebody else play with this. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you all again soon. Bye for now.